Hello everyone, Grandma Kelly here, and you're in for a treat today because I'm going to run through the entire lore of Lord of the Rings for your viewing pleasure in a little under 20 minutes so I can do it. We'll see how it actually starts. So let us start at the very beginning. So at the very beginning, there is one being. His name is Eru Ilúvatar. He is God. He is the big G. He is, the creator of everything, and there's nothing else except for him. But he gets bored like most people do, so he decides, I'm going to make some stuff. So first off, he makes off the Ainur, which are lesser, godlier spirits, and using their powers, they sing the universe into creation using his vision and his notes as a template of the universe. However, among them, there are some who are named and some who are more important and more powerful than the others. There is Manwë, the king of the Valar. He does eagles. Varda, queen of the Valar, and she is known for stars. Ulmo, the god of the deep sea. Aule, a smith. Yavanna, a gardener. Mandos, the dreamer. Veri, she's just there. Arome, the hunter. Vana, a flora and fauna goddess. Este, she likes to sleep. Arumo, visions. Nessie, she is like the animal goddess, and Tulkas the strong. However, there is a final one. His name is Morgoth, and Morgoth is the most powerful of all of the Ainur, and he is brother to Manwë, only in name only, because they don't really have parents or whatever. However, unlike the other Valar, he wants to control things. He wants to be more powerful. He wants to basically become the most powerful being in the universe, but he wouldn't ever be able to create anything by himself because only Eru has that power, and he knows this. And because of this, he goes out looking for a way to do it, but can't find it, so he decides to try and fuck up the other Ainur, and Tulkas is there just to really keep him in check. So what happens is they sing this world in creation, and they see this beautiful world that they made, and what they decide to do is some of the Ainur, the ones I named, they descend onto Arda, as the name of this planet they made, and in doing so, they lose some of their power, and they lose some of their abilities. However, they're still very powerful godly beings, and to light this perfectly flat world while they shape it into their own image, Aule, he creates two giant towers, and on these two towers are two giant lamps, and these two lamps light the world, and they make a little lake and put an island in the middle of the lake, and that's where we're going to live, and that they decide to shape the world as they see fit from this little island. However, the Valar, the good guys I mentioned, they're making all this stuff, and Melkor, being an absolute dick, he's just undoing everything they do. They make mountains, he makes valleys. They make oceans, he makes deserts. They make forest, he makes more deserts, because I don't know what the opposite of forest would be. I guess a swamp, maybe. Anyway, so they're being really bummed out by this. So they chase Melkor away. He goes up north to Artuma, which is those island or that mountain range up top, and the top left one, whatever. And he's hiding up there. Meanwhile, Tulkas and the other Valar are, partying. They're having a great festival time because they just beat Melkor. They get excited. They all fall asleep. This is when Morgoth decides to descend upon them, and he destroys the towers and basically destroys the entire world and all the work they did, and the fire that was holding inside those lamps nearly burns the entire world, which is not a very good thing. So the Valar rush to put this out. In the meanwhile, Melkor, he retreats back to his fortress in the north, and so the Valar are like, we can't deal with this, so we're going to flee west, and they make Valinor their island, and they call it Aman, and they kind of remake the world in how you see it in that lower picture right there. Meanwhile, there are no stars, there's no sun, there's no light, so they decide to make these two giant big old trees that will light the world. However, the light does not really penetrate past Valinor all that much. I mean, you can kind of see it in the background, kind of how you can see a lighthouse in the very distance in the foggy ocean. That's kind of like that, but you don't really get the light. And because of these two trees and light the world, there's only light in this area, and Morgoth is free to run amok in the rest of the earth and complete in utter darkness. And this is kind of a little outline of Valinor, where everybody would live and what kind of things they lived in. We don't really know too much about where everything is, but what we do know is there's certain halls, certain places that are mentioned in the Silmarillion, but none of them really make much difference. So this entire time, when they descended upon Earth, Eru said, watch out for my children, they will awake, and I want you to take care of them. He's talking about the elves and men. Elves are going to wake up first. So while they're waiting for Eru's creations to awaken, they get bored and want to make stuff as well. So Aule decides to make something first because he's a craftsman god. He's a blacksmith. He likes to make stuff. So he makes the race of dwarves. However, Eru didn't like that. He's like, Aule, what are you doing, bro? I told you not to do that, but he did anyway. He's like, I was like, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to. So Eru tells Aule to destroy his race, his people, and as Aule raises his hammer to destroy them, Eru stops him and says, all right, it was a test, bro. You passed. I'm going to put them to sleep, and you can scatter them wherever, but they're not going to wake up until after the firstborn, the elves, wake up. So Aule gets to make the dwarves. And his wife, Yavanna, next to him, she also wants to make something because she is a shepherd, or she made all these beautiful forests and all these beautiful plants and stuff. She's like, well, the elves are just going to cut down my forest and destroy them and use them to make their own buildings and stuff, and that's not very fair. So she wants to make something to help protect her forest and help shepherd them, wink wink, into not being destroyed by the elves. So she gets to create Ents. This whole time, where she goes to Manwë, and Manwë's like, I guess you can, but if you're going to do that, I'm going to make some eagles. And his wife Varda's like, you know what, if you're going to make eagles, I'm going to make some stars. So she fills the sky with stars to bring some light to this dark world, and Manwë, he makes the eagles as his kind of watchman and has his eyes in the sky so he gets a sense of what's going on elsewhere in the world. So, firstborn, the elves, the Quendi, they come about, they're alive, they're broken up into all these little different tribes and stuff. You can pause and take a look at it. I could go into it later if I want to or have time. And this is how kind of the world looks at this moment after the two lamps. So what happens, Valinor's over here. This is the Hitherlands right here. Middle-earth is this area right here where the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit take place. And this area right here in Curuvin, this is where the elves wake up. They wake up here in small little groups, and they form their tribes or whatever, and they start migrating west because Arome, the hunter, he found them over here, and he convinced them, hey, come with me over here to the Valinor where the gods live. It's a cool place. You'll dig it. He took the three kings of the three tribes and showed them around and convinced them to tell his people to come. So they decide, we're going to make this long-ass trek over to here to come to Valinor. But as they're trekking across Arda, or Endor, as it's called, Melkor, who's living up here in this area, in this desolate region of cold, I guess, he starts leading some elves astray and stealing them away and kidnapping them and stuff, and he corrupts them and changes them and turns them into orcs. The orcs. Orcs, are bad guys. Technically, orcs and goblins are the same thing in Tolkien's original Middle-earth book. However, the movies, games, and other stuff have kind of split them off because he uses both names interchangeably, but they really mean the same thing, but that's a different thing. The other Valar, they see what's going on. So hey, Melkor, you done goof, we're coming to get you. So they go to his fortress in the north, to Tumo up here, and literally rip him from the earth and bind him in chains and carry him back to Valinor, where he is going to live out his sentence for being an evil ding dong. And after Melkor is defeated, in quotation marks, this leaves the people to be free and do whatever they want. So a whole bunch of stuff happens. Take a pause, read everything. The important stuff is the elves make it to Valinor. Some stay behind because either their king is frozen in time because he saw a beautiful woman, because the king is lost because they were too scared to cross over mountains, stuff like that. So there's elves in Valinor, and there's elves in not Valinor. And the ones in Valinor are maybe more powerful or more noble and better in the sense because they have seen the light of the two trees, and that's the main difference between these two sets of elves. Fëanor is born. He makes the writing language that you know of, the script that you see on every Lord of the Rings tattoo ever. He makes that. He doesn't invent it. He improves upon it from Rumil's original design or whatever, but Fëanor is going to be pretty important. The dwarves are, making stuff. They're trading with the other elves. Stuff happens. Melkor has convinced the other Valar that he's changed and he is freed from his sentence, and he's just running amok in Valinor and causing mischief. Fëanor, Prince of the Noldor, one of the clans, one of the tribes of the Valar. He is a great craftsman. He is just an all-around cool guy. He makes The Silmarils, which the Silmarillion is named on, they're just like crystallized light of the two trees, and they're incredibly beautiful, and they're incredibly mesmerizing, and people want them, people love them, people need them, and it's going to cause a great point of strife for him and his people for many years to come. So Melkor, he's trying to dissuade the elves and trying to convince them that the Valar are bad, and they're just keeping them as slaves here, and they gotta leave. And while he's like spreading these lies and spreading these mistruths about the Valar and their intentions, he's also arming them and teaching them how to make weapons, how to make armor, how to make all this stuff. And as he's doing this, he convinces Fëanor that his brother is trying to kill his father and take his place as Prince of the Noldor, and he gets upset. He pulls a weapon on his brother. Fëanor gets banished to the north. Time passes. His brother feels bad. They try to make up, and as everyone's convening in a peace truce with Manwë, Melkor takes his time to strike. He and Ungoliant, this giant-ass spider rider, mother of Shelob, they attack the two trees, destroy them, and Ungoliant, she sucks the light out of the two trees, and both of them flee back east, back into Middle-earth, and Ungoliant, wanting more treasure and wanting more things to eat, they also sack Fëanor's city, kill his father, and take the Silmarils and all the gems and all the stuff inside that he has made. So Melkor and Ungoliant flee east, Middle-earth. Fëanor notices, gets pissed, wants to chase after them. Meanwhile, as Fëanor's trying to convince his people to come with him to get revenge for their fallen king and his shit, Melkor and Ungoliant fight because Melkor is hiding the Silmarils from her, and he doesn't want to give them up. She wants them. They fight. Melkor almost dies. He screams like a little girl, and Balrogs come and save his life. What are Balrogs? Great question, viewer. Balrogs are just like Gandalf. If you know who Gandalf is, Gandalf is a Maiar. He's a lesser spirit. He's like a Valar, but not as powerful. He's kind of like an angel, demigod, lesser god, something like that. And these Maiar are corrupted by Melkor. They're saying, hey, instead of being goody two-shoes Valar slave, you want to be my slave instead and be cool winged fire demon? Like, oh, that sounds a good idea. Because the Maiar can take any form they want, but wizards just treat to be old men because they're wise or whatever. So Balrogs are there. They're great fighters. He's going to be like their elite shock unit. There's only like a few named ones, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. So Fëanor wants to get to east across the ocean. However, he can't swim that far. It's pretty far. He doesn't have boats. Who has boats? His cousins, the Telari. They have boats. He's like, hey, bruh, give me the boat, dude. And they're like, no, it's my boat. I want to share. Fëanor's like, all right, and just starts fucking killing them. He kills his own kind. This is the first time anyone's ever been killed by another living thing, ever, except for when the Valar like stormed Melkor's keep and killed some orcs probably. But this is the first time an elf has killed another elf. The first time another living being has killed another living being that wasn't, corrupted or evil or whatever. And this is real bad. Real bad. So bad. Some of the Valar, the Noldor say, I'm not doing this. I'm staying here. And they refuse to leave. And there's some Noldor who still live in Valinor who've never left and are ruled by a completely different person, different king. And Fëanor, his brothers, and his sons get on the ship. They start sailing east. Mandos says, hey, if you don't turn back and don't repent, bad stuff's going to happen. And you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. What do you know? You're just a god. Oh, they alive in Bearland, the westernmost continent. You're not going to see much more of this after this first age because it sinks to the ocean because, stuff happens. So they arrive here. There's already kingdoms set up. There are some elves living in this area, elves living here. There's elves post up all these over places, and Melkor, he has finally returned. He's put back up in here, Tar Nufui. He's back up in his little fortress, plotting, scheming, and he decides to take the fight to the elves in the first battle called the Dagor non Gileath, the Battle of Bearland. It's a different thing. Dagor means battle in Sindarin, ? Anyway, so he sends his host out to siege out and to kill the elves that are there before more elves arrive, because he understands that when Fëanor and his Noldor get there, he's going to have a more tough time actually conquering this area and being the dominant leader. So he sends two hosts, west and east. The east one goes to Amon Eb and fights the Green Elves, kills their king Denethor, and Thingol doesn't die, but he survives. He retreats into the forest, as you see with Thingol's little arrow right there. And the other host goes to Círdan, which you might know who that is if you watch the movies, and his people, and they're being sieged down. All this bad stuff's happening. Da-da-da! Noldor arrive. The Noldor come. They start pushing the enemy back, and they push them back, and they win the battles, break the sieges. And as the enemy is routing, Fëanor and a few select elven guards around him, they get ahead of the rest of his force, and they try to, take Angband by himself or by themselves. This is a mistake because Fëanor is quickly surrounded, and Balrog start attacking him, and he is unable to fend off the Balrogs. However, he's a very powerful elf. He's a very good fighter. He brings down many foes around him. However, he's never going to be able to actually see his Silmarils again, or even get inside Angband, or even close to it. He just sees it from a distance. He curses Morgoth thrice. He dies, and as he dies, his body burns to ash because his spirit was so fiery and powerful and shit. It's fucking sick, dude. It's metal. So, unfortunately for the Noldor, when they first got to the boats, not enough boats rolled on Noldor, so half of them had to walk across the Helcarax, which is an ice bridge that connects Valinor and Middle-earth. Not a good journey. A lot of elves die. Causes good resentment between the Noldor who took the ships and the Noldor who had to walk. And as the second host of Noldor arrive in Middle-earth, this is when the sun comes up, being carried by a Maiar in a fiery little, vessel across the sky. It is made from one of the fruit of one of the two trees, and that goes around a few times, and then the moon shows up, and then that's when the first cycle of the sun and moon come up, and they're basically the two vessels holding two fruits of the two trees being carried by Maiar, and they're just constantly chasing each other around the earth, because that's a creation story for the sun and moon. Fëanor's sons, Maedhros, Malagor, Celagorm, Carthrin, Curufin, Amrod, and Amras. Those are his sons. Not many of them are important, but they do some stuff. Maedhros is now the king of the Noldor, the High King, and he's going to get captured and lose a hand pretty soon. Malagor does some stuff, and then family trees happen. Turgon's important. He has important descendants, important things happen to him. So, Maedhros. So, after Noldor come, push back Morgoth's forces, Morgoth, Melkor. The reason I could see both names interchangeably, because originally his name is Melkor, but Fëanor decides to rename him to Morgoth, which means like the enemy or like the cursed or something to that effect, and that's how he goes by the rest of the time. He's no longer be called Melkor or Morgoth. I'm going to use both names interchangeably no matter how it works. Whatever, hopefully it's not too confusing. So Maedhros is Fëanor's eldest son. He takes command after his father dies. They're currently sieging Angband, and Melkor feigns a truce. He says, "Hey, bruh, I'll give you a Silmaril if you leave. Is that good?" Maedhros is like, "It's obviously a trap, but I'm gonna feign truce with him and bring us an ambush force to take him down." Melkor's thinking the same thing. They both arrive. They both have their ambush forces. Melkor's force is bigger and better. Maedhros is captured, and as punishment for his sins of being a dirty elf, he's hung one-handed from the face of the Thangorodrim, the giant volcano that Melkor lives in, and he's going to stay there for a hot minute until he's freed later on. At around this time, the first men wake up, and men, as you might know, is what we are as human beings. They awake in this area over here called the Hildorin. This is approximately where it is. We don't actually know, but we don't really have a world map. This is a fan map. It's pretty good. I like it. So they wake up here. They start migrating west. Melkor finds them first. He convinces them. Bad stuff happens. Evil men. Blah blah blah. Standard men stuff. There are some few houses. The House of Beor, the House of Haleth, the House of Hador. Beor is the important one. He does stuff, and he has a more important impact on the story, but we'll get to that later. Turgon, he is Fëanor's brother. He came with him to the Middle-earth to revenge the death of his father. He meets the Valar Olmo, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to give you this nice, pristine land to build an awesome, sweet, hidden city in. However, it's not going to last forever, so don't get too attached." Turgon's like, okay, that sounds like good. And he shows them where Gondolin is. And he builds this great, magnificent city of Gondolin. It's hidden behind, a mountain range in a secret valley hidden by 7 gates. Very hard to find. The only rule is no one can leave except by way of the king, which is, very, very rare for that to happen. And he secretly moves all his people into this city, and he's going to live here for quite a long time. And this is a quick little family tree of what's going to happen. Here's Fëanor, the big boy himself. His father, his mother dies, his father remarries, which is very uncommon for elves. A different story, different time. He has many stepbrothers, Fingolf and Turgon. There he is. There's the boy himself. Turgon, whatever. Turgon and his wife dies coming across the bridge to, coming across the Hellcracks to whatever. His sister survives. His sister comes with him. They have one daughter together. They have one son together. They're gonna not do fun things with each other. It's gonna be crazy. Maeglin is the nephew of Turgon. His sister doesn't want to be trapped in Gondolin anymore. She leaves. She finds this elf whose name is Eor, and he's a little dickhole. He likes living in the dark forest. He likes crafting. He likes chilling out with dwarves. He's very un-elf-like, and he hates the Noldor with a passion because he blames them for every bad thing that's ever happened to him. He falls in love with her. They have a son. She tells him great stories of Gondolin and his city, and she grows lustful of the city. That sounded kind of weird, but whatever. She grows weary, wants to go back to her family, back to her city, so she takes her son, Maeglin, and they retreat back to Gondolin, being chased by Eol. Eol's captured at the gates. Eol says, give me my son back, or I'm gonna... you can stay here, but take my son. I want my son. I don't want him to live with these Noldor. Turgon, the king, says, well, you can't leave, or you have 2 choices. You die, or you stay here. Because, you can leave without my sister or your son, but never speak of this place, or you could stay here with your family. He's like, I don't want either. He takes a poison javelin and attempts to murder his son with it. He misses. He scratches the side of his wife with his poison javelin, and he is thrown off the walls of Gondolin for his crimes. And as he's falling, he curses his son, say, you will face the same fate as me one day. Spoiler, he will. His wife, Turgon's sister, she dies from the poisoning that no one knew about, and Maeglin is adopted pseudily by Turgon, and he's going to live under him, become a renowned craftsman and a renowned architect, which will happen later on in the story. Dagor Bragollach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. This entire time when this is happening, the Noldorian are sieging Angband, sieging Melkor. They're trying to get into his castle, trying to get him out to get the Silmarils. Suddenly, the volcano explodes. A great host rides out and just... there's a lot of words. Rides out and completely decimates the Noldorian siege. He scatters them, and the Noldor retreat further back and kind of just take lordship. They make their own cities, make their own kingdoms, and because they were in Valinor, because they have the 2 trees, because they are light, they had the light, essentially. They are higher in hierarchy than the elves that stayed behind, and a lot of them take them on as lords because they understand why they're better than them. Beren and Luthien. So it's a book. Basically, Beren's a man, Luthien's an elf, the most beautiful elf ever, like every elf ever. She's very beautiful. Beren's a man. Beren goes to Luthien's father, Thingol. Thingol's like, you can have my daughter if I get a Silmaril. And he's like, Beren's like, bet. So him and Luthien, they sneak into Morgoth's castle. Luthien sings him to sleep. Beren pries a Silmaril out of his crown and runs off with it. Beorn gets his arm bitten off by a wolf. The wolf runs away, goes crazy in pain and madness. Beren dies. Yeah, Beren dies. Luthien's sad. The wolf is killed. Silmaril retrieved. Thingol now has the Silmaril. Important. Elf has Silmaril. That's not a Noldor. The brothers want it. Luthien dies. they both go to. Well, Luthien doesn't die. Luthien's very sad. Baron dies. Baron comes back to life, and they get married, and then they live in peace for the rest of their lives. Fun story. It's a good time. The dwarves are doing stuff. They are born. They are created. They wake up. They start bringing their cities. Belagos, Norgrond, the Mines of Moria, Durin the Deathless. He's awake. And all this entire time, they're doing stuff. They're making weapons. They're interacting with the elves. They're fighting orcs and goblins and shit. They're having a great, fun, and exciting time. Thingol decides to put the Silmaril into a piece of jewelry. He commissions the dwarves of Belagos to make it. The dwarves who make it, they fall in love with it and try to make off with it. Thingol has them attacked, has them killed, and this causes tension between the dwarves and the elves, and they fight a few times. And this is where some of the major resentment between the two races, stuff like this, happens, and this is why, dwarves and elves don't really like each other. The Ninareth Arnoedidad. Sure, whatever, I can't pronounce. Tears of Normandy shall said, that is a quote from the Prophecy of Mandos mentioned earlier in the video. Basically, this is one of the few battles that evil actually wins. Morgoth sends out the first of the dragons, Glamrung, I don't remember his name. He sends out a dragon. He pushes the people back. A lot of elves die, a lot of men die, and a lot of sad stuff happens. So the second kinslaying, not the last, second. There's going to be more. So the Sons of Fëanor, they come to realize that one of the Silmarils that was found was taken is no longer in the possession of Morgoth. It is in another elf's possession. So he's like, hey, by our birthright and by our oath that's ours, give it to us. And they're like, no. So they decide to sack the city and try to take it by force and, start another war between the elves. Not a lot of bad stuff happen. He leaves some children to die. Not a good thing. The Silmaril escapes them. It's retreated to a different city. Thingol dies. His wife goes back to Valinor, I believe, and the Silmaril escapes their grasp, goes somewhere else, and going to come up later again. Gondolin. So, as I mentioned, Eöl, Maeglin's father, he is a bad guy, a dark elf, and this kind of evilness kind of rubbed off on his son, Maeglin. So, Maeglin, he loves Turgon's daughter, Idril. They're first cousins. That's a no-no. She despises him. He wants her, in a real bad way. So he decides to team up with Morgoth and saying, "Hey, if you help me take out the city, you can have Idril and become lord of the city yourself." He's like, "Okay," and he tells Morgoth where the city is, and Morgoth sends some dragons. He sends an army. He destroys the city. Everyone dies. Maeglin is thrown off the walls like his father was. Idril survives. Turgon dies. A lot of bad stuff happens. So Gondolin's no more. All the great kingdoms of the Bearland are falling. Not a lot of good stuff is happening. So, luckily for us, a hope is born by the name of Ariandil. Ariandil is a half-elven man, son of Tuor and Idril, king of Turgon, blah, blah, blah. He was raised as a child. Gondolin falls. He decides he is raised somewhere else, and he becomes a great sailor. A great sailor. What's another word for sailor? Whatever. He likes sailing. That's his thing. He's the ship that's important. Stuff happens. So, the third and final kingslaying. So, the one Silmaril that Morgoth doesn't have, they know where it's at. They go to the city where it is. They're like, "Hey, give us the Silmaril, or I'm gonna be mad." So they're like, "No, it's alright, I don't want to give it up." So they sack the city. Ariandil's wife, she has it, and their son, their kids. One of them's name is Elrond. I know who that is. they want this. They want the gem. They're sacking the city. They're killing everyone. His wife is like, "No, save me, Valar!" And she jumps off the cliffs. She turns to a swan with the Silmaril attached to her, and she flies all the way to her husband, who like catches him and hugs her, backs to a wife, and then they decide to sail to Valinor with the Silmaril to beg for help. Like, hey, help us. Morgoth's gonna kill us. Please help. This is a peace offering. The Silmaril. Blah 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 blah. They sail there. It works. They convince the Valar, like, hey, help us. A lot of people are dying. We need to like fix this. They decide, yeah, it's a good idea. So the Valar again, they take up war against Morgoth. Them, the elves, they fight together. They defeat Morgoth. They kill him. They don't kill him. They chain him up and seal him behind the doors of night, which is, I don't know what it is. It's something. They seal him away. They get the Silmarils. Evil is vanquished. Hooray! Everything is good. Except it's not, obviously. Some of his lieutenants, a lieutenant of his, a guy by the name of Sauron, might have heard of him, he survives, and he's going to do some stuff. So, all the Silmarils have been reunited together. The Valar have them. However, the two remaining sons of Fëanor, I believe, they show up like, hey, they decide to steal the Silmarils in the middle of a camp full of elves and Valar and Maiar. It's like, hey, these are ours. We're gonna kill anyone who tries to stop us. They're like, okay, go ahead and take them. And as they're trying to like take these Silmarils, they're burning them greatly. There's immense pain in their hands when they're trying to hold these gems because all the evil they have like caused to get these things. One gets chucked into the ocean, and one gets chucked into the earth. And the third and final one is still with Ariandil, who keeps it on his boat that flies for some reason, and he sails the space with it using it as a light. It's weird. Anyway, so dragons are made. Dragons are pretty important. They're like the greatest creation of Morgoth. Glaurung, that guy right there, the G1, he was the first of them. He comes out during the Battle of Sun and Flame. These are just like a size comparison. And at this point, the final battle, the biggest big bad boy ever, and Calagon the Black, he emerges. He comes and he's like, I'm gonna fuck your shit up. So just as a size comparison, here's Smaug, from the movie. Here's Encalagon. There he is. Here's Ariandil on his little flying ship with the Silmaril, going to kill him, because that's what happens. He kills him in combat with the eagles. That's what they're called. So, final battle, lots of cool stuff happens, and Calagon dies. He's so massive and so powerful. When he dies, he destroys mountain ranges, and because of the power that was so imbued in this land because of Morgoth and his corruption, when he's gone, that power is gone, and that causes the whole continent or subcontinent, whatever, to sink beneath the ocean. So everything that we talked about happened in this little area right here. And then this is Middle Earth. This is like, here's the Blue Mountains. The Shire is in this area-ish. A lot of stuff's going to happen here. The Mines of Moria are in this area. The Golden Forest is there. A lot of fun, cool stuff happens. So everyone retreats. Everyone runs away. The Valar go back to Valinor. They decide to make it physically impossible they're not that yet. So, Second Age of the World. Barrowland sinks. They raise up Numenor from the ocean They raise up Numenor for the men who fought alongside with the elves and with the Valar as a reward, and they also bless them with a longer life. And these are the men of the West. These are the Numenorians. These are what Aragorn is, what the Gondorians were. This is like the high tier man. They're going to be pretty powerful, pretty cool people. This entire time, Sauron was originally going to go back west with the Valinor and repent for his sins and re-educate himself on what's going on. However, he doesn't. He decides to stick around. And he's going to pick up where his master left off, and he's building an army. He wants to conquer the world. He wants to become lord over everything. And while he's doing this and building up his people in Mordor, some places are being established. Some people are being founded. Lothlorien is established by by Galadriel and by her husband, fucking Celeborn. Is that his name? Yeah, whatever. Celeborn. That's founded. The rings are made at this point. There's Vilya, Nanya, and Narya. The 3 rings of power. The gifts of rings to men and elves. Blah blah blah. These 3 given to the elves. Three rulers. One was given to Círdan. One was given to Elrond. One was given to Galadriel. A lot of fun, cool, exciting stuff happens. So the ring is made. The one ring to rule them all. The big old master ring. That's made. He puts it on. Control of the rings. Nazgul to happen. He wants to take over the world, so he launches an attack. And he's trying to like destroy the earth and all this. But before all that really happens, the Edain, now known as the Númenóreans, well, not all of them, some of them stay behind, whatever. The Númenóreans on their island of Númenor, they just start to kind of stray from the path that was set before them. The Valar told them, like, hey, you do whatever you want. Just don't try to become immortal like the elves. Don't come to Valinor. And that's really it. This entire time, however, they're starting to stray away from liking, like, originally they were best friends with the elves. They do no wrong. They're cool guys. And they start straying away from that, thinking elves, like, they're hiding the secret of immortality from them. And men really fear death. However, they don't really understand why dying is such a good thing, especially in Middle-earth lore. I'll get to that in the end. So they're starting to stray from that, and there's 2 main factions. There's the elf friends, the people who like the elves, and the people who want, to be friends with the elves. And then there's the people who are like, men are number one, men are the best. They're like the Black people were the fascist, I guess. They're like, men are number one, we're the most powerful, we deserve everything, we're to conquer the world. And they kind of do, eventually. So they want to be really cool and powerful. So the last great king of this island nation is Ar-Pharazôn. And his army is so powerful, he walks up to Sauron's tower and says, you better come down here right now. I'm going to come up in there and get you. And he listens to him. Sauron comes down and surrenders to Ar-Pharazôn. That's how powerful his army was. His golden army was called. So he takes him as prisoner, and he's trapped in Númenor as his prisoner. Eventually, he persuades the king to let him become his advisor, which he does. He starts sweet-talking him even more, say, hey, you shouldn't worship the Valar. You should sacrifice people to Morgoth. He's a cool guy. You should totally do that. You should throw the elf lovers into a pit and then sail west and take out the Valar. That'd be cool. And he's like, oh, I could take out the gods. That's pretty cool. So he decides to sail west with his entire army, and as soon as he sets foot on Valar, his entire fleet is sunk. He is killed. All his men are killed, and Númenor is sunk to the bottom of the ocean and destroyed. However, not all the men were part of this. Not all the men were worshipping Melkor, human sacrificing, and like inbreeding, which is kind of a problem they get into a little bit. All this is happening, so they flee Númenor and settle into these areas in Middle-earth that the Númenóreans were already like kind of like settling in. They had ports or had like fortresses and kind of cities growing up, because at this point they were colonizing the rest of Middle-earth because they had money, they had power, they had the ability to. So there's 2 kingdoms made. Arnor in the north, Gondor in the south. Arnor, you won't really know much about unless you've played like War in the North or, the Lord of the Rings Bifme game. They talk about it. The one you're going to know about is Gondor in the south, which is the important one eventually. So originally there's like 2 different kingdoms ruled by the same king eventually. However, he dies and his sons kind of split, and one set rules the north, one set rules the south. Arnor is going to fall eventually, and this is going to happen after this point. So the last line of Men and Elves. After Númenor falls, Sauron retreats back to Mordor. He gets the ring, puts it on, becomes, big old bad Sauron with the big old mace, and decides to start marching out to conquer the men who were like already like resettled a little bit. And the elves have already been here and try to take him out, become dominion of Middle-earth like he always wanted. However, the elves, the dwarves, and the men, they team up, they fight him off. We got Elrond here, we got Gil-galad here, we got Isildur here. Gotcha. And we got his father right here. He dies. Rip, rip. He dies. Rip, rip. He survives. So Gil-galad and Isildur's father, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, they fight Sauron 1-on-1 or 2v1. Sauron dies, and Isildur takes his sword and cuts off the ring of Sauron's dead body and takes it for himself, even though Elrond's like, destroy it, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. He decides to ride back north to Arnor, to his father's kingdom in the north. He is ambushed by orcs. He is slain. The ring falls off his finger and is lost into the river for a very, very long time. After this happens, after the war, and Sauron is still alive, he's still a little ghost boy doing like ghosty things, the Valar decide to send some wizards to help guide the free peoples into making the right decisions. And they send 5 of them. There's Saruman the White, Radagast the Brown, Gandalf the Grey, and Alando and Palandor the Blue Wizards. So you only really get to know 3 of these guys if you read the books or watched the movies. These 3 right here, he's in The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, whatever. These 2 guys, they decide to go far east, and they're never heard of again. So instantly failed their mission. Radagast falls in love with the forest, fails his mission. Saruman tries to take over the world, fails mission. Gandalf dies, comes back, saves the world, completes mission, best wizard. All right. So the northern kingdom, Arnor, the Witch King of Angmar, kind of rises up at this point after his master has fallen and decides to make war on the northern kingdoms. And the northern kingdoms are already weakened because they lost their king. They're losing their people. Their kings are kind of shit. Arnor breaks into 3 different sub-kingdoms, Ardarathan, Rhudaur, and Carnduin, and slowly but surely Angmar pushes down and conquers all the other kingdoms. A big plague happens, and it kills a whole bunch of people and kind of decimates Arnor's population. And after the war, there's so little of men left. The kingdom kind of just dissipates, but there's still roaming bands of Númenóreans rolling around, and those are going to be known as the Rangers of this point, which Aragorn is from. So this is where Aragorn's family is from, this area. So it's going to be kind of important later. The dwarves, at this whole time, the dwarves are living in, Erluin. There's some dwarves here, the Misty Mountains over here, or the Misty Mountains are here, the Lonely Mountains over here. They're there, they're doing stuff. They're making their cities. Moria is taken. The Smaug comes eventually. All that fun stuff. The Blue Mountains are still kind of good. A lot of bad stuff happens with them. In the South Gondor, after they lost their king, they have some more kings. This entire time, the king, they've always had a king. They've always had someone of direct line of Númenor, direct line of the original kings who came over to rule over them. However, the very last king they have had no sons, had no family besides him. He gets called out by the Witch King. It's like, hey, if you ain't no bitch, you're going to come over here to Minas Ithil, the city I just took, and fight me 1-on-1. And the last king of Gondor is like, that sounds like a great idea, and decides to take him up on his challenge and goes to Minas Ithil and is never seen again. And that is the last king of Gondor until Aragorn comes. So from then until Aragorn, the country of Gondor is ruled by stewards, and the steward is a linear succession, as in the Hollow of the Sun takes the place. Don't do that. So Minas Ithil is corrupted into Minas Morgul, which can corrupts it. Morgul magic, a little cool, fun Fire X happens. Hobbits are alive at this point. We don't really know where they're from. We think they came from the east, the eastern side of the Misty Mountains, and kind of migrated west. But they're settled in Arnor. They're chilling. They're doing their Hobbit thing. They're farmers. They don't fight. They're very peaceful. However, during the war in the north with the Witch King, they sent a battalion of Hobbit archers to help defend the final fortress of the Arnorians. And because of this, the King of Arnor at the time grants them the lands that they live on. So the Hobbiton, the Shire, and all the other Michael Delving, all these other settlements, they're owned by the Hobbits, and they're ruled by the sheriffs and stuff like that. Blah, 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 blah. The goblins attack them at one point, Battle of Green Fields. Bilbo's uncle knocks the head off the Goblin King, soars 40 feet or 50 yards into a gopher hole in the immense game of golf. Fun, cool stuff. The Hobbit happens. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for this part. So The Hobbit, if you haven't read the book, I'm going to go with a quick run down of it real fast. So, Misty, the Lonely Mountain, Erebor, taken by Smaug because they hoard all this gold and it attracts people. The people are scattered. Bilbo's over here in Hobbiton enjoying his nice quiet life. Gandalf's like, yo, want to go on an adventure? He's like, okay, I'll go on an adventure. And him and 13 dwarves decide to go across Middle-earth, over the mountains, through Rivendell. They meet the elves. Elrond's like, don't do this is a bad idea. And Gandalf's like, shut up, I know what I'm doing. If the Smaug is unattended, Sauron's going to get it and take it out. Blah, 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 blah. They go through the Misty Mountains. They go through the Goblin Cave. They kill the Goblin King. Fucking the ring is found. Bilbo takes the ring. Smeagol is upset. They keep going. They go into the Wood Elf territory. They get captured by the Wood Elves. They escape in barrels. They float down the river. They go to Esgaroth, the lake town. They say, hey, we're gonna take Erebor. You guys can get money if you do help us. They're like, yeah, we're gonna help you. So they give them weapons, supplies, and armor. They go to Erebor. Smaug is still alive. Bilbo can't find the King's Jewel, which might be a proto-Silmaril because this story was written before everything else was written, but that's a different tale for a different time. He can't find it. Smaug wakes up. They attack Smaug. Smaug breaks out. Smaug destroys Lake Town, Esgaroth. He is slain by the Black Arrow, by the Archer Man. His name is Bard. Smaug's dead. The people and the elves are like, hey, they come to Erebor. They lay siege to it. It's like, hey, repay us for the damages you caused because your greed could not sustain yourself, because this whole adventure was for money and reclaiming the power that they once had. So currently there's 3 armies here. There's the dwarves, there's men, there's elves. They're missing 2 more. What could happen? Oh my goodness. The goblins and the orcs from the mountains, they come here to take the gold and retake the strategic position that Erebor gives to them. A great battle happens. Thorin dies. His cousins die. Dane Ironfoot III becomes king on the mountain. The Hobbit ends. Bilbo goes back to Hobbiton. Lives a long, happy life as a swank millionaire because hobbits don't know what money is, and he has a fun and exciting time. 80 years pass or so. Lord of the Rings happens. Okay, Lord of the Rings. Gandalf discovers that Bilbo had discovered the ring. The one ring to rule them all in the mountains of the Misty Mountains. The caverns of the Misty Mountains. He tasked Frodo Baggins and his friends to go to Bree to find him. However, they get to Bree after being chased by the Nazgul. Frodo, Samwise, Pippin, Merry. They make their way to Bree. They get to Bree. They make this mysterious man named Strider. Strider's like, I know what hunts you. You should be scared. And they decide to flee even more east to get to Rivendell because Elrond knows what to do. They get to this place called Weathertop, this ancient watchtower of Arnor. Frodo gets stabbed by the Witch King by a mortal blade. Frodo's slowly fading into the ghost realm. They keep going. They make their way past the stone trolls from The Hobbit that happened in the movie. It's a good callback if you watch the extended edition. They make it to Rivendell. Frodo's slowly dying. Elrond heals him. Elrond summons the secret council, summoning all the free races. Dwarves are there, men are there, elves are there, of all the different varieties. They decide, we gotta get rid of the ring. It's gonna be bad. Gondor's champion, Boromir is like, we should use the ring against the enemy. We will protect our people with this power. And he's like, that's stupid. It's gonna corrupt you. And Frodo's like, I'll take the ring and destroy it. So they decide we're gonna take the ring and destroy it. So we got Pippin, we got Merry, we got Frodo, we got Samwise Gamgee, we got Gandalf the Grey, we got Aragorn, we got Legolas, we got Gimli, we got Boromir. 9 men, or 9 fellowship members to counteract the 9 Nazgul, the 9 Dark Riders. They descend from Rivendell, go around the Misty Mountains to their forest into Moria. In Moria, Gandalf is slain by the Balrog. A Balrog he also slays. Lose 1 member. They go into Lorien. They meet with Galadriel. Boromir is mind fucked by her, and he has great doubt in his heart, and he wants the ring even more. They go down the river with the boats they give him, missing Gandalf. They're sad. Oh no! They go all the way down. They go past the Falls of Arwen, the giant statues of Aragorn's descendants. Boromir tries to take the ring. Frodo and Sam flee. Pippin and Merry captured. Boromir's slain by arrows. The three hunters, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, chase after Merry and Pippin. So, party splits. Each story happens thusly. Frodo and Sam is his green track. They go this way, they get lost in dead marshes. Somewhere in this area, Smeagol finds them. They convince him to help him. They go over here, they go here, they get to the Black Gate. They realize they can't really sneak into the giant gate that's opened by two trolls very easily. Smeagol's like, I know of a secret road you can take. And they take the Morgul path. Shelob's there. Frodo gets stabbed. Is he dead? We don't know. What's going to happen? Let's see what happens with everyone else. Frodo and Pippin are captured by Uruk-hai of the White Hand of Saruman. They're taken all the way to Fangorn Forest, where the Ents decide to start fuck up some Uruk-hai who are taking out trees and stuff. They meet Treebeard. They meet Gandalf. Treebeard decides to take them safely, and they start, and Pippin drinks some Entmoot, gets taller, gets more powerful. They convince the Ents to ride to war against Saruman because he is destroying the nature and all that. They ride to Isengard, and they attack Isengard. Frodo, Samwise, and Smeagol is happening at the same time, and Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli's adventures all also at the same time. Aragorn using his elite ranger tactics. He tracks Frodo and tracks Merry and Pippin across Rohan to Fangorn Forest. He thinks they died. Oh no, he meets the riders of Rohan. They realize they might be still alive, whatever. The riders of Rohan have been exiled by the king, who is being corrupted by Grima Wormtongue. They decide to go to the Golden Halls and be like, hey, what's going on? And they kick Wormtongue out and break the spell of Saruman over King Theoden of the Rohirrim. But what's this? In Fangorn Forest, they meet the White Wizard. The White Wizard's bad. That's Saruman. Wait a minute, it's not Saruman. It's Gandalf. He's back from the dead. Whoa! So the party is kind of revived. They go to Rohan. They tell the king, hey, Saruman's gonna attack you. You should prepare your defenses. You should ride out to meet him. He's like, no, I don't wanna. So he takes his men south to Helm's Deep, which is in this area. So it's Helm's Deep, which is somewhere in this area. It's right here. This area right there. Takes them there. They have a great siege. One of the greatest action scenes ever in movie history happens. The wall is blown up. Men, where is the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing? Ride out. The Gandalf got the Rohirrim. They ride out. They break the siege. Victory, yay! The Ents plant their murder trees outside Helm's Deep, and they gobble up all the retreating Uruk-hai. It's kind of weird. Not in the movie. Read the books. They're good. They decide to go to Isengard to find out, the Isengard's already been destroyed. What happened? They find Merry and Pippin smoking some pipe weed and chilling out. And Treebeard decided to let Saruman go, because Saruman is a great person with wards. However, he has the Palantir. He gives the Palantir to Gandalf. They go back to the Golden Halls and decide to have a nice little nap. In the night, Pippin takes the Palantir, looks into it. Sauron sees him. Sauron thinks he has the ring. Gandalf rides with him to Minas Tirith. This is this light green line right here. He rides now. That's not yet. That's not happened yet. He rides there, gets there. The steward, King Denethor, is heartbroken because he saw his dead son floating in the river. He's very upset. He's very distraught. He's very manic because he's been secretly looking into a Palantir of his own, and Sauron has been using his mind magic to fuck with him and tell him he should give up and all is lost. This whole time, Sauron is building a great force to besiege Minas Tirith. Osgiliath is taken. They're riding across the river. They're making a siege on Minas Tirith. Some troops from Dol Amroth come up. Dol Amroth is right here. They ride up. They ride here. The Swan Knights, very important in the books, not touched on in the movies. Rohan is riding to the aid of their friend Gondor. They get to this place right here. Aragorn meets Aragorn and his ranger buddies show up. Aragorn's ranger buddies show up. They ride through the dead mountains. They convince the dead people to help fight with them, and they take this long ass yellow path around. They take over some boats that some pirates are coming up to help attack Minas Tirith from the south of this area. They scare them off. They take their boats. They ride all the way up to Minas Tirith and land there and help break the siege with Rohan when they arrive, because they have a great host and the great banner of Arnor. It's very beautiful. It's very awe-inspiring. So Minas Tirith's under siege. Faramir is wounded greatly. Denethor thinks he's lost all his son. He goes crazy, tries to burn him alive. Gandalf kicks him on fire. He runs off the thing, falls to his death. Fëanor still alive. Rohan shows up. Ride now! Ride for ruining the world's ending death! They charge. It's beautiful. Orophants come. They kill the Orophants. Unlike the movie, the dead people don't like run around and actually, kill all the orcs or whatever. That doesn't happen. They're there to scare off the pirates. That's all they do. However, Aragorn arriving with the banner, showing up, breaks the siege. They never actually enter the city of Gondor because the lower walls of the city, if you can imagine it, are actually made of the same material that Orthanc is made out of. It's that dark metal that's unbreakable, so they actually never break in. Gandalf stops them. The Witch King is killed by Eowyn. She stabs him. I am no man. Stab! She's greatly poisoned. A lot of people are dying in Gondor because of this Morgul poison. No one can heal it. But there's this old saying that the hands of the king are the hands of a healer. So Aragorn sneaks into the city that he's destined to rule and starts healing people. He's saving lives. He saves Faramir and Eowyn. They fall in love. They're going to get married later. But he doesn't want to enter the city until he can be king, until Sauron is defeated. So he convinces everyone who survives the siege, say, hey, we're going to ride on the Black Gate and attack Sauron directly to give Frodo and Sam more time, who at this point are, they escaped the tower. They're trekking through Mordor dressed as orcs to try to destroy the ring. They get caught eventually. They get to this mountain here and they decide to throw it in to end the siege, to end their quest they've been on for the past year or so. While this time, Gondor's armies, Rohan's forces, and whoever survives marches on the Black Gate. They call Sauron down. He sends his entire force out. They fight. Eagles come. This whole action's happening. Frodo and Sam are in the mountain. Frodo gives into the temptation of the ring, puts it around, goes invisible. Smeagol's still there. He bites his finger off, falls into the lava. Frodo almost falls in. The ring is destroyed. Sauron screams in pain. The tower explodes. All the orc die. Happy ending. Yay. Aragorn rides back to Gondor. He is crowned King Elessar of the United Kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor by Gandalf. He marries Arwen. They have a son. The hobbits go back to the Shire to find out, hold up, Saruman actually has taken over Hobbiton. He's using ruffians that he hired to become dicks and like to break shit, and he tore down the party tree and all that stuff. Frodo beats Saruman. There's a battle that goes on. A few hobbits die. A few men die. Frodo doesn't like it. He doesn't like death. He's a little bitch now. Well, he's had enough of like violence, period. He convinces Saruman, like, you're lost, leave, and we shall not harm you, whatever. Saruman and Wormtongue, they decide to leave. Saruman, being the dick he is, he kicks Grima Wormtongue down, and Grima's had enough. He pulls out his knife and slits Saruman's throat on the steps of Bag End. Saruman's dead. His spirit is denied the right to go back to Valinor, and is blown away by the Eastern Wind. It's something I believe that happens. Frodo and Sam marry Pippin. They live in the Shire. They are now changed. They're more mature. They're more powerful. They have a different aspect on life. Sam marries Rosie Cotton. They have like 16 kids or something. It's ridiculous. Frodo never marries. Frodo is constantly in pain from when he was stabbed by the Witch King. He can't take it anymore. He finishes writing the Lord of the Rings book, in the red book that Bilbo wrote, which was The Hobbit, and he gives it to Samwise, say, the last pages are for you. I want you to finish this book, and rides west with the rest of the elves, or rides west with Elrond, with Círdan, with Gandalf, with Galadriel. They decide to leave and go west with the rest of the elves because the elves are leaving at this point. And sad, very emotional. I cry every time. Gimli moves into the glittering caves behind Helm's Deep. Him and Legolas become lifelong friends. Lifelong friends. It's speculated that when Gimli is close to the end of his life, Legolas takes him on one of the last ships that leave Middle Earth to go to the west. And Gimli might be the only dwarf ever to actually go to the Undying Lands, which would be kind of cool. Aragorn conquers Umbar to the south, the Haradrim, those people attacked him, subjugates them, vassalizes them, and kind of like makes the world a better place and everything. And then that's all we know about that age. So that age ends, everyone's gone, everything's happy, evil is defeated, ? And everything's good for X amount of time, because all we know is how it's going to end, and how it ends is called Dagor Dagorath, the final battle. What's going to happen is Morgoth will find a way to break his chains and break out of the doors of death, the doors of night, and descend upon the world once more with all his armies and all his forces and all the bad things he's ever had. And the forces of good and the forces of evil are going to fight one final battle. And in this final battle, good is going to triumph over evil, and the world is going to be remade, is going to be resung into existence by the men, dwarves, elves, and all the other good living people in the rest of the world. We don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know what age, anything else that happens. We just know that is going to happen. And that was the entire Lord of the Rings. My throat hurts. If you have any questions, any concerns, any comments, anything I got wrong, anything you want more in-depth explanation on, go ahead and put it in the comments. Thank you for watching. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but my God, I hope it was worth it. Thanks for watching. Peace.